(24-10), the Saints won that game against the Jets in 2009. The Saints faced a very tough defense led by Revis Island, right? But Sharper Island came through for the Saints, returned a pick, 99 yards for a touchdown in that game, you might recall. And it's been a long time since we've seen that kind of performance from a Drew Brees-led offense in what is now the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. The Saints and the Lions, and it did not go well as Detroit showed why their record is what it is, and they're a division leader. They whipped the Saints 28-13, and I do mean whipped them. They were better in all phases. Matthew Stafford has really matured as a quarterback. He's a good player, and he showed it here yesterday. Drew Brees had an uncharacteristic bad game. Time of possession, well, there you go. Offense couldn't get it going, and the defense couldn't get off the field. That's a bad combination, and the end result is a 15-point loss, and it was all of that. It was no closer than that. If anything, it could have been worse. Lions didn't finish drives. Otherwise, it would have been worse. Saints didn't have that many opportunities. Ken Trahan, sportNOLAtv. So as a result, the question has to be asked, how do you go from your best performance of the season at an emotional high to maybe your worst performance of the season at an emotional low? Brian, that speaks of a mediocre football team, frankly, that's inconsistent and really just is who they are. The record speaks to who this football team is.
I couldn't agree with you more, Kenny. I mean, it really has been a kind of a disturbing trend about this team for really the last 3, 4, 5 years. It shows a young, inexperienced team. And no better play shows that than the long touchdown pass to Golden Tate. You know, I mean, that's just a play that should not happen. And young, inexperienced defense, and it'll come back to haunt, and it did yesterday. Look, I think Detroit beat the Saints at their own game, guys. I really do. They control the clock. Their defense played gritty. And then we don't say this very often, but a quarterback came into the Dome and outplayed Drew Brees in his backyard.
Yeah, and the Lions look a lot like the Saints in how they approach the game.
Really did.
In terms of their offense. A lot of underneath stuff, taking what was there, moving the chains, and just possessing the ball and just bleeding you to death, basically. Ricky, I guess the question has to be asked about motivation, because as a player, you can't possibly summon that high emotional, feverish pitch every week. We saw that from the Saints against the Rams. We saw nothing of the sort against the Lions, and Coach Payton basically said that after the game.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ken, Detroit went out and built their offensive line up, and they got some good receivers now, and they don't have to try to throw to one man like when they had Matron. So now he can spread the ball around. So it make the quarterback feel a lot relaxed, and he doing better, and the offensive line protecting him. And you know, so that makes a whole difference with that team. That's the only thing that team was missing. They always had a pretty decent defense, but now the offensive line protecting the quarterback, and he got some good receivers.
Yeah, they won the battle up front of this game, clearly, Brian, on both sides of the ball. The Lions were better up front. When you're better up front, you typically win.
And look, I thought they had a great game plan, okay? Every time the Saints put 8 in the box, he would throw out wide to one of his receivers and get one-on-one coverage and take advantage of that. And they had a great game plan. It's hard to imagine. Here you got the Lions. They were 7-4 on top of their division. We understand why they are in a playoff mode. The Saints are not out of this, okay? And they're coming off a great win against the Rams, and yet they look like they were just packing it in. They were ready to go home for the season. This is where the head coach comes into play here. Didn't do a good job inspiring this team.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, they ran the ball a lot better than I thought they would. I mean, they went right up the middle, and they was getting 6, 7.
Particularly in the late stage of the game.
And Theo Riddick, their leading rusher, had under 400 yards on the season coming in.
I mean, but to kill the clock, they really took advantage of going straight ahead on the Saints. So that showed they was outmanning the Saints, you know.
Just beat them up front, like I said before. No question about it. So the tone was really set up front. On the first series of the game, Saints get a 3rd and 1 after it looked like they might have gotten a first down, but maybe got a bad mark.
Yeah.
But then they line up with an empty backfield, and they get a snap to the right of Brees. He doesn't handle it. And I think that really kind of established the tone for the whole game.
Kenny, I was surprised, and maybe you guys were, maybe not, but that Detroit won the toss and elected to defer to the second half and kick off. Now, I thought, well, they're playing right into the Saints' hands, right? 3 and out. they'd turn around and drive the field and kick a field goal and kind of set the tempo. I think that was a challenge, and the Saints did not meet that challenge, particularly on offense.
They did not, and it was a very rare day for Drew Brees, who clearly wasn't the Drew Brees we're accustomed to seeing, as only the third time in his career that he had no touchdown passes and 3 or more interceptions in a game. Doesn't happen that much. It happened on this day. You see the picture of him there in that throwback uniform. Ricky, the uniforms look good. Unfortunately, the Saints kind of play like the guys that used to wear those throwback uniforms in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, they didn't have a good day yesterday. I mean, and the thing about it, man, they had a whole lot of people there pulling for them, but they never did show up. Even in the first play, they should have got an interception. When he dropped the interception that was thrown right to him, kind of hit him in the hand. It was just show you right there that the Saints are going to have a bad day the rest of the day.
Great point. I mean, that could have been the
Sterling
play.
Moore.
Yeah, that could have been the play that set the tone for that game too. So you're absolutely right.
That's a play you have to make.
You got to make that.
You got to make it. But you know what, though? If you look at people, they gave the Saints 6 games to win. Those people, once they do something like that, they don't be far off.
Right.
I mean, you ain't think you're going to win 10, 12 games. When they said that, you won't win over 6. So,
right.
You kind of falling into line with what they predict.
Rick and Ken, that play reminds me of the 2009 season when somebody would have made that catch and returned the ball for a pick 6, okay? That's the difference. When you're not a real good football team, you have to make those plays because your margin of error is very small. So you have to make that play.
Just like when Meekum, when the guy got the interception and then he took it back from him and went all the way down.
Right.
You got
Meekum,
breaks, but they're not getting the breaks this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, this is a football team, the New Orleans Saints, that they've had special teams issues all season long, and it cost them games. But as Jim Mora, who coached Ricky, has always said, you are what your record says you are. That's who the Saints are. They're 5-7, and there's a reason they're 5-7. Do they have some promising players? Yes. Do they have some good future players? Yes. But are they the type of team that's seriously contending for a championship? No, not even close. So you look at this team right now moving forward, and you just wonder where they're going to go. And then the biggest issue otherwise in this game was the Lions' ability to convert on third down and to play keep away from the Saints, as they just did not allow the Saints to have the football for much of this game. Lions dominated time of possession. Look at the plays of these drives. 9, 11, 12, 10, 11. Those are long drives. Look at the time. 5:09, 7:25, 6:03. That is a huge chunk of time, Ricky, for A, your defense to be on the field, and B, your offense not to be on the field.
And I tell you what, Coach surprised me, the Detroit coach. I got a chance to meet him for the game. Man, he's just a humble spirit guy. I mean, he's not a guy that look like he'll killer fly or nothing. So I really talked to him for a while in the game, and I see the way he interact with those players and stuff, man, and they was ready to play ball.
Well, they had a great game plan. And listen, I mean, when they come out and they play nickel and they're going to keep everything in front of them, you've got to be patient enough to just take the check downs and go down the field slowly but surely, much like the Saints did against Carolina in the second half. That's the blueprint to play the Saints. Carolina did it. Now the Lions have done it. You got to believe everybody else is going to do it moving forward.
Right, and again, I think this is another one of those games, Kenny, where the defense played well enough generally. Now, they didn't make big stops when they had to, but they did a great job inside the red zone. When you hold that club to 4 field goals inside the red zone, that's pretty good. Now, you might have problems from the 20 to the 20, but they did a pretty good job. But again, some of the problems, and they're kind of confounding to me, is that Drew Brees and the offense, this is where you expect this team to play well, consistently well, and they haven't been the last 6 weeks of the season.
But my whole thing, they looked a lot slower, you know what I mean? They looked sluggish, like, we done left it on the practice field, or we left it somewhere. And just image the ball and throwing the ball and stuff, the ball didn't look like it did the week before. I mean, and the turnover, when you get 3 turnovers like that and the other team win a turnover battle, most of the time you're going to lose the ball game.
Yeah, and two, the last interception, of course, was just
a
desperation throw. But the other two were where he's trying to fit it in down the field against the defense I spoke of, and they just made plays, and that's why they ended up in the position they were in. But then you also had opportunities. I know Kobe Fleener was screened out at the goal line, but you've got to make that catch. That's a perfect throw by Brees, Ricky. You got to make that play.
You got to make that catch. A couple of them, that sneeze no miss in their hand, they got to make those catches because balls are right in their hand. And you don't get a lot of opportunities against a defense like that. So when they come, you got to take advantage of it. And they didn't yesterday.
You know, here's another example. We talk about this. The running game, it's you know, really doing well 1 game or 2 weeks, 2 games, and then all of a sudden, now, look, this is still a 10-point game, right? And they're not running the ball effectively, okay, either with Ingram or with Hightower. So you've got to run the ball and continue to run it. That takes a lot of pressure off Drew, and they weren't doing it.
Well, you know, you heard the fans yesterday more than anything.
Yeah,
man. I, after the game, so many fans were let down. I mean, because they really went there thinking that the Saints was going to continue what they did last week.
We all did. We thought that.
Right, but I mean,
picked the
so
line.
you know,
We
just
picked
to
the
see, just to hear everybody talk to you,
Yeah.
man, they was down in the dumps. So I know today they down in the dumps, just like all the rest of us.
Well, Kenny, the thing to me, again, I'm going to go back to this, is that they looked like they were uninspired, okay? Like there wasn't anything to play for yesterday when there was everything to play for. And the way it played out, you know, certainly Tampa Bay now is in a first-place tie. We'll talk about that. But Atlanta loses at home. Okay, they're not taking care of business. They've left it open for the Saints and Tampa Bay.
Well, we teased it. We're going to talk about that coming up next. And, of course, we'll talk about the entire NFL picture as well as we continue with sportsNOLAtv from our good and great friends at Premier Chrysler Jeep Dodge at 13,000 I-10 Service Road in New Orleans East. At Premier, you'll get a reliable and stylish new or used car at a price you can afford with Premier's expansive inventory of new and used cars. You have to stop by the dealership for all of the hot deals. Thank you to Premier Chrysler Jeep Dodge, Troy Duhon, and Premier Automotive for their continuous support. It's where you'll get a good deal on the real deal. Back to talk NFL in a moment on sportsNOLAtv.